Welcome to the BWWP, Peace Place for Me video broadcast.
Welcome to Peace Place for Me, a virtual connection where the contagious love of Jesus Christ abides and thrives. We are an exclusive community purpose to enhance and expand spiritual and holistic growth to advance the kingdom of God. Thank you for joining us today as we enter a time of sharing with Pastor and Chaplain Tracy Mack in this virtual, interfaith inclusive, and purpose-filled community. Let's listen in.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am Tracy Mack, pastor and chaplain, or I can just be your friend. Peace Place for Me community is a place for you, a Christ-conscious spiritual community where we educate, encourage, and edify. There's a lot going on in our world, and I think we need more of it. Education, edify, and encourage. Peace Place for Me is interfaith, inclusive, not just inclusive to our LGBTQ community, but also affirming. A lot of people can be inclusive where they say, come on in, but then they give them hell once they get there. But I say affirming, as well as spirit-filled and purpose-filled. We always say, I like to say that Peace Place is not just where we gather, but it's also who we become and are becoming, whether it be individually or as a community. The last time we got together, we talked about peace in the midst of the storm. And we talked about how Jesus was in the midst of the storm with the disciples. He had already done his good storytelling in Mark 4, and he told so many parables. And then he took the disciples aside and he said, I'm going to break this down to y'all a little different than I do the crowd. And but when he went to sleep on the boat, he was chilling and knocked out on a cushion, it even said. And the disciples were in the midst of the storm and they were like, Master, come on, man, wake up. And when Jesus spoke to the storm and he said, peace, it's not the regular words we use as peace, it's in a peace agreement. We're not waiting for agreement on the other side. In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it talked about peace in the form that it's in the Greek in the Bible, that definition is obsolete, because when Jesus said peace be still, that word peace is to be muted, to be shut up and shut down involuntarily and immediately. And I think, and I know that so many things are going on in people's lives where we don't need to wait for a peace agreement, as we stated the last time, but just shut up, shut it down. And what I'm finding is I've gotten several speaking engagements invitations for speaking engagements within the past few months. And I don't accept every speaking engagement I get, not because I think I'm all that, but if I don't think I can add value, I don't do it. And going back a little bit into what we talked about last week, as far as peace be still, because there's so much going on in people's lives. We don't, like I said, have to wait for agreement. You got to tell that thing, hush up now and immediately. But in some of these speaking engagements, people know some of the subject matters that I've taught, trained, coached on, pastor, chaplain, whatever. And because somebody has told Americans, especially in America, and I'm not sure the data in other countries, but in general, because it's supposed to be evidence-based scientific data, that the adult attention span is anywhere from 7 to 8 seconds, much that of a goldfish. So when people are having these events or these workshops, they want me to come in for an hour, and not all, but they want me to cover so many things in an hour. One of them said they wanted me to cover mental health, marriage relationships, entrepreneurial, caring for adult children, caring for adult parents, and self-care. And I said, how long do I have? They said about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, because you got to allow for 15-minute Q&A. I said, you want me to cover all of that? Do you know the layers of issues that are involved in each one, and the layers and the decades and lifetimes that people have spent as to why they're in these situations, why you want me to cover all this, and you want me to cover it all effectively in 45 minutes. It's going to take me 2 minutes to get acclimated to the room. It's going to take me a minute to feel who I'm talking to, regardless of me knowing my subject matter. So that takes 2 or 3 minutes away. then I'm not going to be talking at warp speed. And then I got to allow for Q&A to come from either one of these things. I said, I can't add value to that because we think, and we have been duped into believing that our adult attention span is so short that we've got lifelong problems that can be solved in 2 or 3 minutes or 45 minutes. Because what does that person do? You pretty much just kind of train wrecked a positive subject matter to people that are just experiencing so many different things. And no, do I think you have to speak the everlasting gospel that it takes all day. But at least when Jesus was performing miracles, I jokingly was telling somebody this week, he turned water into wine. At least he started out with some water. Y'all want me to perform miracles, ain't giving me no water. So I was just thinking about the state that the world is in, our election season. Some of us have voted early. Some of us in the United States will wait until November 5th to vote on the traditional day. I was also looking at a video where there was a Black lady. She looked very youthful. You know, sometimes Black don't crack. And I was thinking she was about in her late 50s, early 60s. But no, she had a T-shirt on where an old ballot had been screen printed on the shirt and it was hers. And she was explaining to the crowd, because she was a poll worker, that was a picture of her ballot in 1960 when there was a poll tax, a $2 poll tax. And she said back then, a lot of Black people didn't make but $2 a week. And so you had to decide, am I going to feed my family for the week with this $2, or am I going to pay this Black poll tax that white folks didn't have to pay? And this was just in 1960, 9 years before I was born. That's not long ago. So I encourage you, if you hear this, if I get this up and out, if we make it public, please go and vote. Our democracy is at stake, and there's a lot going on in the world with people. And our political system is not able to answer a lot. The church isn't, to me, doing a great job. I think we're trying to answer a lot of things. And so sometimes we try to bring the wrong, we have the right people, but we may sometimes be bringing the wrong solution to the table. And ain't nothing worse than somebody giving you a problem, giving you the wrong solution. That's just as worse as not having a solution at all. And one thing I have to admit myself, and I just said a few minutes ago, I did a little blurb, that we have to admit sometimes when we have failed. We have sometimes in our lives where we have just outright failed. We may have tried our best. It doesn't negate the fact that we didn't do our best. We may have had the right tools. We have had the right access to information. We may have had the right heart. We may have had the right intentions, but it just failed. If I have been successful in anything, there have probably been 10 failures in that same thing. And a lot of people don't express it. Dr. Angie Arrington, as I had stated in the little blurb I did, we did a lunch and learn together. And she's a beautiful person. And she said, we have to admit to people that when we have had failed cakes, because a lot of people will see, whether you look at social media or just look at somebody's life and you say, oh, they got it together. Well, I be trying to admit my failed cakes. And even when I admit that I failed, people still be thinking I'm trying to brag or say something. I have messed up a lot. And I even have to confess this morning, when I think about even Peace Place Community, we started this in 2023. And we went for about 6 months before I got sick. And we have not been as consistent. We only get together twice a month. But even with that, we've missed. I've had to take time off. There have been things that have happened. So in some of my being hard on myself, sometimes I say, oh, it should be this. This is what I wanted. But what I have to look at is there's a difference, the subject matter today, between groups, teams, communities, and tribes. Groups, teams, community, and tribes. In my over 25 years in business and working and ministry, I think I'm pretty good at groups. And if we want to look, just for the sake, not to insult anyone's intelligence, but just for the sake that we'll be on the same page. In Merriam-Webster, the definition for a group is a number of individuals assembled together or having some unifying relationship. Synonym for group is a clump or collection. And I've been really good at clumping people together and collecting people together. The next word, team, and in Merriam-Webster, team is a group of players forming one side in a competitive game for mission or sport to win or achieve a common goal. And a synonym for team is a crew or a gang. And a gang, I don't mean gangs in LA, the Crips and the Blood, but but you're assembling together for a particular mission to compete. And I've been good over the years forming groups, building teams, whether it be for myself or being part of mastermind groups to build teams for corporations or groups. And even in team building, there's some conflict resolution involved because teams come together for storming, norming, transforming, all those things. And things happen when you're forming teams and team building and making groups. But I tried to bring my layers of experience and whatever expertise I may think I have, I tried to bring that into building community. And to some degree, that's where I'm learning because I'm having some failed cakes. Just keeping it real for y'all who don't want to admit, sometimes we have to learn to fail forward and fall up. And in community, according to the dictionary, Merriam-Webster, a group of people having common interest, the scientific community, the international business community, those are examples. But community is a group viewed as forming a distinct segment of society, identity, common unity, and interest. And a synonym for community is neighborhood. You're not trying to build a neighborhood where I've been in corporate settings or small business settings or even church settings. That's not building a neighborhood. Community is a neighborhood. And I don't know what the sense of neighborhood is now. I know growing up, your neighbors, especially in different communities we lived in. Now, on the negative side, neighbors, I know my parents couldn't stand because our neighbors were always trying to borrow stuff we didn't have. And my parents and siblings can attest to the fact. I remember one of our neighbors knocked on the door. People say, can I borrow a cup of sugar? Y'all remember if you go back to those days, a cup of sugar, a cup of flour, maybe some butter or whatever. But my parents and siblings can attest to the fact we had a neighbor that came over, asked if they borrowed some toothpaste. And we was on a struggle bus so bad back then, we were using baking soda and peroxide. So number one, we didn't have no toothpaste. But number two, come on, son, bring it in. But that neighborly, being able to, neighbors watch out for one another's children, being able to sit outside. I know when we moved first and when we first moved into the home we live in now, such a great neighbor, such great neighbors. We live in a cul-de-sac and the kids would be outside playing. We would pitch in money to buy community toys, whether it be bubbles, chalk, skateboards. And we just love seeing the children play. We had 3 houses where any of them could knock on the door and get a snack. My pantry had snacks. My girlfriend's pantry across the street had snacks. And it was just so neighborly and reminded me of my childhood. Of course, the kids would fuss and fight, whatever, but it was still, and that wasn't often because some of those kids still have grown up to be sisterly and brotherly towards each other. And but I tried to bring the team building and the group building into building community, because it doesn't make groups, teams, or community any better than the other. I just didn't realize how different they can be. And so in the groups, you're just bringing people together. In teams, you're cultivating an environment of specialties so you can compete, your crew or your gang. And in your community, it's like a neighborhood. And then there's one more. It's tribe. And the definition of tribe, according to Merriam-Webster, is a unit of socio-political organizations consisting of a number of families, clans, other groups that share a common bond and culture, among who the leadership is typically neither formalized or permanent. A group of people sharing an interest, different habits. And the synonym according to Merriam-Webster, for tribe is kinfolk and family. So while you may have a team, a group, while you may have a team, you can have a community. In a tribe, it's kinfolk and family. And I've been saying on the Black Women's World podcast ever since 2020 that our vibe attracts our tribe. And you can't always see, because people are listening from all over the world, you can't always put faces and names on this thing. But every now and then you'll get the opportunity for God to show you your tribe. I had the wonderful experience of going to the Inclusion 2024 conference in Atlanta, and had been in a connection with people by way of Zoom, by way of phone calls, by way of YouTube. But I had never met some of these people in person. But I finally saw how the vibe attracts your tribe. I'd like to say in Peace Place, our vibe has attracted a tribe. But I can also say one of my fail cakes is trying to bring team and group forming and team building into establishing community. And that's something I want to correct. And and you can't do it without community input and support, so that we can be a tribe of kinfolk, whether we are related by blood or not. Because as I started out saying, there's a lot going on in the world. And as old people used to say, it comes a time when we need to pull together. Because you may not have a grandmother in your family, you may not have an aunt, you may not have a child, you may not have siblings. And if you have those people by blood, maybe by nature, there's not that connection, or maybe by relationship, there's not that connection. And so it's time, regardless of who wins the election. I'm gonna tell you, I ain't ashamed to say I need Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to come on in the building. And should they win, and I hope they do, we still got to deal with ourselves, because the day she gets in office, the first 100 days, even the term that she and he may do together, and everyone else who's on the ballot for local elections, which are very important, even when those people swear in and take their oath in office, there's still some things we have to work out within ourselves as individuals, within ourselves as teams, groups, communities, and tribes. And I just want to establish a place that, at least with Peace Place community, with Black Women's World podcast, with Tracy Mack and Peace Place LLC, that if I've had any fail cakes, it's for this one to succeed. And I don't even know or care what success looks like. I'm not looking at numbers. I'm not aggregating data to count. I think we'll all know what it feels like, because the one of the main points as I get ready to close is that when you're building teams and you're looking at groups, you look for charisma. You're looking for those people's skill sets and talents. But when you're building community and you're identifying your tribe, you're looking for character. And character is not on full display in a lot of people's lives. Of course, you can't see through the screen and what people are really thinking, whether it be on television, social media. We don't get to interact a lot of times, but I am so leaning on character, those things that people do when they're by themselves, those things that people have fruit that they can be dependent upon and be interdependent. And having a mission. What is that mission? A culture of openness, being willing to challenge and change, being willing to say we're wrong, being willing to stand up and say when we're right. But that sense of community, that sense of having a neighborhood and a tribe of kinsmen and kinship and family. Because one of the other attributes about community and tribes is that it's not hierarchical. Nobody's jockeying for position. You lead where you lead, and they lead where they lead. And we have to get to know each other in order for those things to happen. So without having all the answers, I just want to present the topic. Because and sometimes I think I've felt I've had to have a solution for everything. But in this case, I'm vulnerable enough to let God work it out as we go. One of the scriptures says to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. I'm just willing to let God work it out in public. And I'm willing to let it be another fail cake if it's not what God has in store and in mind for me, or for anyone who chooses to be a part of this community, listen to the podcast, or ends up being a part of vibing with my tribe. So that's all I got for you today. I'm grateful and I love y'all for real. Much love and peace.
Thank you for listening to Peace Place for Me, a place of peace for you. On behalf of Pastor and Chaplain Tracy Mack, we hope you enjoyed today's sharing and the blessed time spent together. We want to express our gratitude in advance for the generous gifts you have chosen to share for the benefit of our community. We hope to fellowship with you the next time we come together on 2nd and 4th Sundays at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. For access to join our virtual meetings, email us at peace@blackwomensworld.com. That is, peace@blackwomensworld.com. Or visit our website at peaceplaceforme.com. Until next time, peace and blessings to you.